everyone in this world comes from different backgrounds or different situations. And I think that's one thing that we all kind of take in when we meet new people or new groups. We always want to figure out, like, where does this person come from, or what do they do that's so special, something like that. And so I've seen that throughout everyone I've met, or when people meet new people. And so one thing I've noticed as friendships keep going is that you don't really ask those questions anymore. You just kind of learn them as the friendship progresses. And so the thing I'm going to talk about is how with knowing and not knowing some things about people, you kind of take advantage, or you don't get to know who those people are really. And so I'm going to explain to you my experiences and then some other people's experiences I've known personally. And we're going to start at where I grew up. Now, I've mentioned before that I grew up on a reservation out in North Dakota. When I was growing up, there was no real, I never thought anything could be out there. I didn't really learn the 50 states, or didn't really learn anything about the world. It was just North Dakota. And I think that's one thing that I kind of just kept in my mind all the time, because I generally have all this information about North Dakota and how the native peoples down there work or whatever. And not only that, the little town of 48 that I grew up in, the capital, where Bismarck, where me and my family would go have like a nice dinner or go to the mall, whatever we needed. That wasn't in 48. And so from then on, once I was born to like 7-ish, I didn't really think about how other people grew up or interacted with each other, because I mean, my friends and I, we kind of just acted the same way. We kind of like the same things, so I didn't think anything of it. That kind of changed when I moved to Kansas. That was about when I was 7-ish. And so moving into first grade, there was all these types of people, not only natives, but we have white people, African American, and then Middle Easterns, you name it. And so that just amazed me. I was like, wow, there's more than just natives out here. And so I got to know that, and that's one thing I've noticed as my time growing up, is that I've gotten to know people and know these different groups of people, showing how their culture works or how they work in it. And so I've asked my parents, like, hey, what was your experience growing up, both in the res and wherever else you grew up? And not only my parents, but my grandparents as well. And so as I've grown up, I've kind of blended in with all different kinds of racial groups, I'd like to say. I don't know if that sounds weird, but I mean, that's just me. And so I asked my mom, I was like, hey, what was it like for you? So I asked her. She grew up partially on the same reservation, then she moved to California, then Colorado, California, and Kansas, finally. So eventually she was like, I got to meet a bunch of people like you, different groups, and I'm glad I met them, because it taught me more about how this world works. And I asked my grandma the same thing, what was it like? And of course, when you ask your grandparents something, they'll be like, oh, back in my day, this happened, and they give you like this dramatic story. And I mean, I think that's one thing I like about our elders, is that they'll tell you these amazing stories about back then. And you make it, and it's not that far back as we want to think it is. And so, with that being said, I take that all into consideration. I'm like, wow, I never knew how much just either individual group of people or just one type of person can change your life. Because that definitely happened to me moving here. Because if I didn't move away from the reservation, I'd probably just be some stereotypical kind of sporty or like country, kind of like native. And that's what all is out there, kind of. So I'm really grateful that I moved here, because I got to meet so many people, and I'm still meeting so many people. And so one thing I want to dive into is politics, because that's not, I know that's not very fun, but you definitely see it everywhere we look. We see, two prime examples is, of course, all these pipelines across America. I choose that because, for one of them is being built on my reservation. And for that, I mean, to see all these people, whether it's from all across the United States or out in the world like Ireland, they had a big support group. And that really was like, wow, the amount of support people can give, even if you're not in the same country, that just shows how cool people are. And so, but then you have the other people that just kind of don't like that. They kind of disagree and say like, oh, let's just put it down anyway. Let's put down this pipeline just to gain money and stuff. And that's all I see about it. I know there's a lot more to it, but all I see is money and the loss of my land. And then another thing, coming back to like all these racial groups and stuff, is immigrants and terrorists. We always have this idea of these people as a bad thing. And one thing I think we can all agree on, or from my assumption, is when we think of Muslims, we think of 9/11 or something like that. And I think we need to realize that, yeah, they were a part of the Muslim peoples and whatever, but I mean, that's not all of them. That was such a minuscule little people just to get someone's attention. And I think that's what we need to kind of forget about, is that, yeah, you have all these terrorists, but they're not representing the whole group. And that's the one thing I wanted to teach, or at least talk to you about today, was that we have all these racial groups or all these different kinds of people, and I just want to say, like, make sure you don't take advantage of your prior knowledge or knowledge that you don't even know. Because you never know. They could be like your bestest friend one day, or your enemy, either way, but just not take advantage of what's out there.
7:30.